I'm a professional basketball player who just finished up an 8-month season playing professional basketball overseas in Sweden. And I just got back to the States a little less than a month ago, and I'm already noticing some major changes. So if you live outside of the US and you want to visit for some reason, or if you want to move, I have 6 major differences that I realized from my life abroad compared to my life now here in America.
Previously on Ready to Die.
Charleston Chew, an underrated candy bar. This is a Charleston classic, Towson against Xavier. Juwan Gray from Towson.
Over 100%.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's the Real Juan here. And if you're new to the channel, thank y'all for tapping into this video. So if you're not familiar with my channel, I'm Juwan. So I just give you an in-depth experience of what it's like being a professional athlete, playing overseas, provide lifestyle vlogs, and just different vibes in general. So if you're new, tap into the channel, hit the like button, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. So the first reverse culture shock I would say that I experienced in the United States after living in Europe for the past 8 months is small talk or different kind of greetings. So typically, if you live in the United States, small talk isn't really a big thing. You know, people are always on the move, always on go, trying to get to where they need to get to. Typically, you walk past somebody on the street, or if you're waiting to go inside of an elevator, these are how these conversations would go if you were in these scenarios. Hey, what's up? Nothing much. How about yourself? Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. And then they'll just keep it moving. That's literally how a conversation would go if you live in America. There's not that much small talk that goes on. And it's actually funny because when I was living in Sweden, they would ask me, how come you guys don't prolong a conversation? Like, if I ask you, hey, how are you doing? I would expect you to tell me actually how you're doing and not just say, oh, I'm good. The second reverse culture shock that I realized once I came back to America is I'm gonna be flat out and say it. People are unapologetically rude out here. And by rude, I'm just saying like, yo, angry at the world, like because they having a bad day, they gotta shed their bad light on somebody else. I didn't really get a chance to experience it that much when I was in Europe, but I literally saw this the first 10 minutes when I landed back in the United States, from Sweden to Chicago, because that's the airport that I stopped at. 10 minutes into me being at the airport in Chicago, I'm getting acclimated to how the United States once was from my previous time out here before I left to go to Sweden. And there's people on the move. First of all, I forgot how on go people was. Like, there's so many people rushing at one time, and that kind of messed me up a little bit because life wasn't as fast paced as it is here compared to Europe. But so I'm walking to my gate to try to get to where I have to get to, and people are bumping me, not saying nothing. And also too, I stopped to get something to eat because we were just on the flight for 8.5 hours. I'm going to get some food at the convenience store in the terminal, and people have an attitude with me because I'm trying to order something. Like, I'm over here trying to be cheerful and everything, but I put my food on the counter, cashier just looking at me like this. Like, that's all? I'm like, damn, like what I do to you? So if you're coming from Europe, you need to be prepared for that. Number 3. Hustle culture. I'm not saying hustle culture is a good thing. I'm not saying hustle culture is a bad thing, because people have to do what they have to do depending on the circumstances. Hustle culture is rampant in the United States. Maybe because America is a capitalistic society, so people from America always have to be on the move. Maybe it's because they got bills to pay. If you go to school, you have to pay for your tuition. If you have a crib, you live in by yourself, or if you have a roommate, or shoot, even if you live in with your folks, you might have to pay for rent, you know, your utilities, you got to pay for food. And maybe I didn't see that in Sweden as much because the government, they provide more assistance for their citizens. Not just Sweden, but a lot of countries in Europe, they provide free healthcare for their citizens. They provide free education. So since those basic necessities are taken care of, they really don't have to worry about all the other expenses. So the fourth reverse culture shock that I realized coming from Sweden to America is the accessibility. I'm gonna just say this. The United States public transportation system has nothing on Europe. Like I told y'all, I lived in a super small city in Sweden, and that city was called Köping. Fun fact, Köping was actually voted the #1 most boring city in Sweden, which is crazy. and I lived there for 8 months. I didn't have a bad time. I made the most of my opportunity, but I was able to travel to different places all throughout the country because of the elite public transportation system. The trains are super high maintenance. You can literally get on a train to go to anywhere you want to get to in Europe. That doesn't have to cross a body of water. And the prices for that are extremely cheap. I used to take a train to go to Stockholm when I lived in Sweden. Stockholm is the biggest city in the entire country of Sweden, and it was an hour and a half away from Köping, which is where I lived. To get from Köping to Stockholm and Stockholm back to Köping, the entire price for me to do that was $25, which is extremely cheap. And mind you, the trains were super nice. They had 2 levels, the Wi-Fi was popping on there, and they were clean. And also, the city buses in Sweden, they were clean, and they had Wi-Fi, and it was cheap as well. I live in a small city now in Delaware, so the transportation really isn't as prevalent as I noticed back in Europe. I don't really see the bus too often. I rode the bus one time, and it was dirty. Yo, that joint was disgusting. Like, I didn't want to touch anything. And also, there was no Wi-Fi on the bus. And like I told y'all before, people are rude. The 5th reverse culture shock I noticed is the lifestyle. We don't promote healthy lifestyles here in America. If you go on any street, any corner, you're bound to find a fast food chain. Whether it's McDonald's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, Five Guys. You know, I just named 6 fast food restaurants right there. And there's plenty more to choose from. Like I told y'all before in the last point, everybody has a car. You have to drive to get to where you want to get to. And there's also fast food that is available for you at your convenience, which isn't a great recipe for your health. And this goes to show you which is why America is one of the most obese countries in the entire world. And in my opinion, I just think it's going to get worse because we're not promoting healthy lifestyles for ourselves. You know, comparing it to Europe, there were fast food restaurants. We had a McDonald's, and we had a burger place in my town. Those were the only 2 fast food restaurants that we had in my entire city. But like I said, everything was accessible there, and people were walking to work. People were riding their bikes to work. And just that promotes healthier lifestyles for you because you're getting your exercise in by walking outside or riding your bike to and from work, wherever you go. And that's normal over there. And you don't see too many people who are obese or overweight because they're using certain techniques to keep them in shape and ultimately keep them away from the doctor and keep them healthy. And the last culture shock that I realized from being back in America, yo, the food is trash. Like trash. Has nothing compared to Europe. Call me biased if you want, but I lived there for 8 months and I'm a picky eater. I was one of those chicken tenders and fries guys whenever I go to a restaurant because I was too picky to eat anything else. Yo, I went over to Europe and my palate changed dramatically. Like, I eat almost everything now. Mind you, I still got work to do. I'm still afraid to try some foods here and there, but for the most part, I can eat a lot of stuff that I normally wouldn't eat before if I lived in the United States. And that's because the food over there is made with fresh ingredients compared to the States. And in the United States, they insert all of these chemicals into our food, and that takes away from its natural state. You know, but in Europe, I actually noticed that there were some candies and foods that were banned due to the fact that there were other chemicals and stuff that we're not supposed to be eating in our foods. So the food is different in Europe. Like, I used to go to the grocery store every week when I was in Europe, and just off of this alone, like, I ate so much bread because it tasted so good. Like, I used to get blueberry muffins and a loaf of bread that was baked on the same day, and it was fresh. That would be my go-to. I'd get like 2 or 3 blueberry muffins and eat them in one sitting and not care. And also too, when you dine in restaurants in the States, you know, your server, you know, they bring you to your table, and pretty often they check in on you. They have to bring you your beverages, they bring you your food, and they just check on you from time to time to make sure everything is all right. It kind of makes you feel rushed in a sense. Prime example right here. I went to this Mexican restaurant with my folks. You know, we was having a good time and everything, and the waiter just kept coming in to check on us. You know, maybe they don't think they're doing anything wrong because that's probably what they're taught in the training. It just makes you feel like they're being rushed when the server is constantly coming to you and asking you if everything's okay, especially when it's pretty busy in the restaurant too, because it makes you feel like you're rushed and they're trying to get you out of there so they can serve the next party. And also another thing, when you dine in at restaurants in the United States, A tip is not mandatory, but it's highly recommended. What I know in Sweden and probably some other countries as well, a tip is not required at all. Like, they're not even supposed to accept it. My first week when I was in Sweden, I went to a breakfast place called the Waffle Lounge. As soon as we finished eating, we're getting ready to go. I put money on the table and I presume to walk out the door. The waiter flags me down, hands me my money back, and tells me that we don't accept tips. And I was kind of shocked because just being in America, that's something that traditionally we're supposed to do. So these were the 6 differences that I noticed from coming back to the United States after living in Sweden for the past 8 months. And I didn't make this video to bash the United States or anything. I just used this video to help out somebody who may be interested in coming to move to the United States or just visiting for a month or 2 or whenever time you might, because you want to be prepared for anything. So that's all I have. Thank y'all for watching this video, and like I told y'all before, if you're new to the channel, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for your boy. So until next time, y'all take it easy. Peace.